Hello, my name is Tony Bro. I've been a resident of Deux Montagnes since 2003, and I've posted this video in order to inform as many residents as possible of a very serious health issue that I believe should concern us all. The issue has to do with our water tower that is ringed with cell transmitters and antennas. So, I will begin with a question. Is the radio frequency radiation emitted by the cell companies renting space for their transmitters on top of the water tower possibly making residents sick? I believe the city issued contracts permitting the installation in 2007 or 2008. I also believe this was a unilateral decision by the city, as I do not recall the residents ever being consulted in the matter. I should inform you that the city in 2017 received only $36,600 in rent from Rogers, Telus, Videotron, and TAG. So why do I ask this question? Well, unfortunately, I discovered 4 residents diagnosed with rare primary brain cancers between the years 2011 and 2017. All residents lived within a 500-meter radius of the tower. 2 individuals lived directly across the street from each other on 19th Avenue between Guy Street and Duboisier Street. A 3rd individual lived on 26th Avenue between Montclair and Guy Street. A 4th individual discovered by Santé Publique and confirmed to live within the 500-meter radius between the years 2011 and 2017. Brain cancer is considered very rare, accounting for less than 3% of all cancers annually. What did I do once I discovered these residents with very serious yet rare cancers? Well, in May of 2018, I requested that Mayor Martin relocate the cellular antennas installed at the top of the water tower, located at the corner of Guy and Lucien Robillard Streets. My concern being for the health and safety of the young children and adolescents that live and attend the schools and daycare center located directly across the street and exposed to the RFR emitted by the antennas. Mountain View Elementary, Lake of Two Mountains High School, and Centre de la Petite Enfance Daycare are directly across the street from the tower. As a matter of fact, one of those stricken with a brain tumor in late 2014, in addition to living within 500 meters of the tower, attended both schools for 7 years. Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada's published brain cancer fact sheet states that brain tumors are the leading cause of solid cancer death in children under the age of 20, now surpassing leukemia. What guidelines dictate the placement, power, and exposure limits of the cell antennas, and who is responsible? Safety Code 6, issued by Health Canada of the federal government, outlines the placement, power, and human exposure limits of radio frequency radiation. Health Canada did not invent Safety Code 6. The code essentially derives from the U.S., their guidelines set by the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC. What does Health Canada say about radio frequency radiation and illness? Last year, at the same time I notified the city of the cases of brain cancer, I wrote to the Minister of Health, Mrs. Petitpas-Taylor, requesting that an investigation be undertaken. She did not reply to my first email, but did eventually have a subject matter expert reply on her behalf. I need to tell you that I notified all stakeholders of my concern at the same time. I notified the city of Deux Montagnes, the federal ministries, as well as the Director General of the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board, and finally, Santé Publique Quebec. You can see from this note that Health Canada says we absolutely have no need to worry about our children. Which federal department is responsible for ensuring that firms respect Safety Code 6? The Ministry of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, or ISED, is responsible for ensuring that the cell towers meet the requirements of Safety Code 6. ISED is also responsible for selling the spectrum to cell phone companies. As a matter of fact, an auction that took place in early April grossed the government $3.4 billion. and it's estimated that the government enjoys at least $1 billion annually from the spectrum. Wireless revenues in 2016 to the Big Five cell companies, namely Bell, Videotron, Rogers, Telus, and Shaw, amounted to $23 billion and are growing at 5% annually. What does the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development say about RFR and illness? So after 6 months in writing to Minister Navdeep Bains 3 times, insisting that there was a problem in our city and requesting that an inspection of the tower be performed, he finally agreed to have a street-level scan done in our community. The radiation was measured on December 5, 2018, at the 3 street addresses I had provided. I should point out that the ministry had informed me early on that ISED does very few inspections of towers, effectively leaving the industry to monitor and measure itself. Now that surprised me, but what really concerned me is that I was made aware that no cell tower in Canada has ever been found to exceed the parameters of the code, which really made me wonder about the wisdom of letting the industry monitor itself and the breadth of the limits of Safety Code 6. So I was not at all surprised that the tower was found to be well within the code. Like Health Canada, the Ministry of ISED says, no need to worry. What does Santé Publique Québec say about RFR and illness? In June of 2018, I requested that Santé Publique investigate the cause of the rare primary malignant brain tumors of 2 neighbors living directly across the street from each other on 19th Avenue. They agreed to look into it, but for reasons never made clear to me, they only looked at a timeline of 2011 through 2017. Now, I should point out that it only became clear to me late in the game that I was dealing with an organization that only recently made public a report on RFR that concludes that although the limitations of current research cannot exclude all possibility of risk, no short or long-term adverse health effects have been demonstrated for RFR exposure within the established limits. That is, the limits defined by Safety Code 6. Also, Santé Publique Québec refused to consider the area of 500 meters around the tower as pertinent or relevant. I can only guess that is because it skews their statistics for brain cancer. So, like Health Canada and the Ministry of ISED, Santé Publique also says, no worries. What does the Director General of the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board say about RFR and illness? I should let you know that it took several months to receive an official reply from the school board, which surprised me. As I mentioned previously, one of those stricken with a tumor attended both schools. It is known that children are more susceptible to RFR than adults due to their skulls and brains not being fully developed. So, the school board, like the federal ministries and Santé Publique, says no need to worry. What evidence exists that living within 500 meters of a tower could be a health risk? This chart summarizes a number of studies in different parts of the world that demonstrates symptoms experienced by people living within 500 meters of a tower. Everything from headaches to irritability, depression, and sleep issues, with the worst finding being a 3-fold increase in cancer risk. Bottom line is, when it comes to cell phones and RFR, there is a debate, very similar to the tobacco debate of the 60s and 70s, and one of the most frequently heard phrases I came across in my research is, there is no evidence to support RFR having health effects. Or simply, there is no conclusive evidence. This is completely wrong and is promoted by the industry. In fact, there is an enormous body of evidence out there, but public, academic, and even medical awareness is very poor. This might be the result of dealing with a new form of air pollution, one we cannot see or do not want to see. You only need to Google brain tumors and cell towers to understand the magnitude and complexity of the debate. As for every single study which links cell phones and cancer, someone could find a different study which shows there's no link. What is the Quebec and Canadian brain tumor rate? Well, the Quebec 2017 projected new cases of brain tumors is approximately 840. Therefore, the projected brain cancer rate for Quebec is 1 in 10,000 as of 2017. As for Canada, the projected new cases of brain cancer was about 3,000 overall. Therefore, the projected brain cancer rate is 1 in 12,000. These data come from the Canadian Cancer Society and Stats Canada 2017. The Deux Montagnes brain cancer rate within 500-meter radius of the tower for the years 2014, 16, and 17, these are the 3 years that cancer was discovered, is actually 1 in 2,238 versus the Quebec rate of 1 in 10,000. Therefore, the brain tumor rate, if you live within 500 meters of the water tower here in Deux Montagnes, is 4.5 times the Quebec projection for 2017. What steps have some cities and institutions taken to protect their populations from radiofrequency radiation? Otterburn Park, very close to home here, is in litigation with TELUS for the last 4 years in order to restrict the location of a cell tower. Brussels recently put a halt to a 5G pilot project out of concern for their citizens. In Walnut City, California, cell towers antennas will not be located within 500 meters of any school, trail, park, or outdoor recreation area, sporting venue, and residential zones. The Vancouver School Board, since 2005, stated that cell phone antennas can't be installed within 1,000 feet from school property or childcare facilities. And in France, since 2015, antennas banned from nursery schools and spaces dedicated to children under 3 years old. Wi-Fi should be off when not in use. In Israel, since 2013, wireless networks are banned in preschools and kindergartens, and they restrict the amount of internet time for first, second, and third graders. Also in California, firefighters have been able to be exempt from the forced placement of towers on their stations because of the strong opposition they have due to health concerns from the radiation. In Chile, since 2012, they limit the power of antennas. They cannot be installed near sensitive areas where children, elderly, and medically compromised people would be exposed. Here are the limits of radiofrequency radiation in different parts of the world. The safety column on the far right is expressed in volts per meter, which is a standard unit of electric field strength. You can see that Canada, along with the US, lead the world in permissible electric field strength, and that even Russia and China, who are not exactly known for being concerned about their population's health, are 10 times less than Canada, and Austria's is 3,000 times less. This slide presents various governments' delay to take action on now known carcinogenics. Asbestos was banned by the EU in 2005. It took 99 years. It took 71 years for the USA to ban lead and gas. It took 60 years for trans fats to be banned again by the US in 2018. France is having a complete ban on PCE in their tap water. It's taken 97 years to act. Smoking and tobacco, the early warning sign was 1949. It's been banned in public places in California, the first time in 1995. We mustn't forget Canada's experience with radon gas and urea-formaldehyde of the 70s. Now, are governments always wrong and slow to react? For sure not. But what this slide is portraying is that if we learned anything from these past mistakes, we should listen to the early warning signs. In the case of RFR, the thousands of studies that show radiation might be harmful, and then act with precaution. So this brings us to what do the Mayor and Council of Deux Montagnes say about RFR? The Mayor and Council advised on April 8th of this year the same thing that they advised me in May of last year, that the jurisdiction is federal, not municipal. The city cannot prevent antenna installation on its territory. The street level scan result I arranged does not justify the relocation, and that the council will remain vigilant in this matter. So my rebuttal to this position is that the city owns the water tower, not the federal government. The city can prevent the installation on city-owned property. The contracts authorizing the installation were issued by the city, not the federal government. And as far as the street level scan, not one Canadian cell tower, as measured, has ever exceeded the limits of Safety Code 6. Therefore, the city, like the federal ministries, Santé Publique, and the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board, are saying no need to worry. Now, what does the World Health Organization say about RFR and illness? In 2011, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization, classified radiofrequency electromagnetic fields as possibly carcinogenic to humans, Group 2B, based on an increased risk for glioma, a malignant type of brain cancer associated with wireless phone use. This 2B classification of RFR by the World Health Organization says that we do indeed have to worry. What is the precautionary principle? This is a principle that was published and adopted by the United Nations in 2005, and it states that when human activities may lead to morally unacceptable harm that is scientifically plausible but uncertain, actions shall be taken to avoid or diminish that harm. Morally unacceptable harm refers to harm to humans or the environment that is threatening to human life or health, or serious and effectively irreversible, or inequitable to present or future generations, or imposed without adequate consideration of the human rights of those affected. As Dr. Annie Sasko, a well-known expert on childhood cancer, stated at a conference in London in 2012, we may never have the absolute final proof, but we have enough data to go ahead with a precautionary principle. So, I encourage you, for the sake of our children, to please contact Maire Martin and your counselor and insist that the cellular transmitters be relocated at least 500 meters from the schools and daycare center. I have provided their contact information herein, and I'd also like to offer my understanding and empathy to the families, and especially all those affected by brain cancer. And by the way, and for your information, in all of my correspondences and in-person discussions, not one individual at the city nor the government agencies, including the school board, ever made any reference in any way to those affected by this cancer. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out, and I can only hope that the information presented concerns you enough to take action as I did, again for the sake of our children. And I will conclude this presentation like I began, with a question. So, just how many brain tumors will it take in order to convince the city to apply the precautionary principle as defined by the United Nations and take action to relocate the transmitters from the water tower? Apparently, 4 is not enough.